Well, this is a bit strange for me because I'm not normally talking into the camera, like at all. So, yeah, this is going to be really weird. So yes, hello, this is me. This is what I actually look like and sound like, although you probably would have already known that if you A, would have spoken to me before, or B, had watched my 50k subs video. So feel free to insult me in the comments if you really want to. So today I'm here to do another Q&A with a face reveal this time, because I'm a YouTuber who makes totally original content, as you can tell right here. And no one's clearly ever done this before. So before I get into all the questions and answering and all that nonsense, I just want to do like a massive, huge thank you to everybody who subscribed. And I know this is going to be, because knowing me, it's going to be quite late. I'm probably not going to get this up by the time I actually hit 100k, but I just thank you to everyone who has actually subscribed. It's still just mind-blowing to me that I've actually made it this far. I used to have a channel before this one I did, but it was just really stupid content. I don't think I ever got over 100 subscribers, so looking back, it's just like, it's crazy to see how far it's come. And even when I started this, I didn't think it would do very well. I just sort of wanted to make some models and show them to people. I never thought like anyone would actually enjoy it. So just thank you to every single one of you. Either if you just subscribed recently or if you've been here from the very beginning, just thank you to you all. Oh, and if you're thinking my face doesn't really look genuine enough, that like I'm actually really thankful, well that's because this is just my normal face. My face is just normally like this. So it always seems like I'm really depressed or like I really look really angry or something, but no, this is just normally I can rarely bring myself to smile. So yeah, I don't know why I did that smile thing there. Okay, so before I actually get into the questions, I have quite a lot of people to shout out, and I have it as a list here because there's just too many names. Okay, so big shout outs and thank yous to all: to Sun, Midnight Spectre, Detective End, DMNC, Jin, Nega, Milky Rose, Marco Satsu, you should go watch his videos. Ben Paper, should watch his videos as well. Bamboo, Thomas, Memes, Vapor, Sake, Cheeto, Blaze, Enna, Cam, Cross, Goody, and some of my best mates, IRL, Jamie, Josh, and Aaron. Really sorry if I missed anyone out, by the way. But without further delay, let's just cut to the questions because I can't be bothered just rambling on anymore. So question number one comes from Mary T. It kind of feels a bit weird calling you by your actual name because, like, I know you best from Amino, but anyway. So you ask, what's the next piece you're excited to build? Well, I'm really looking forward to building all the drivers from 01. Like, I'm really looking forward to having a go at making the shot riser, I think it's called, and the whatever the belt that Jin and Horobi is going to use. I'm not sure how I'm going to actually do that. Like, I've come up with an idea for the progress keys, but I'm not sure how I'm going to make it be able to do what it's supposed to in that belt. Plus, it looks really strange. Yeah. So next question comes from... yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that username. On YouTube, and they ask, how many pieces of Lego do you spend during making belts? Well, it really all depends because it's like depends on how big like of an actual model or a belt I'm actually making. Say like something like the Fies belt I made. Well, I'm not really too sure like when it is from this video, but for me it was a couple weeks ago. So around that time, it probably took maybe 400 pieces to make, or maybe a bit more. I'm not really too sure, but most of the time, if it's just like a belt on its own and maybe the gimmick item, maybe somewhere over 100. Zero from Kamen Rider Amino asks, what do you think about Build? I think Build was a pretty okay season. It was like fairly decent, but like I did have a couple problems like with it. I thought the characters were very entertaining and good. Grease was always my favorite. I always thought that any time he was on screen, it was always fantastic and really funny. Sento had was an okay character. I thought the whole memory loss situation was interesting, and I'm not too sure if they handled it better or well than they did in, say, Agito. But like I said, there is a couple things that I'm not too fond of. One being Evolt's plan, because it just felt like every time they had to discuss it, they had to add more stuff onto it, and it's like they just kept piling onto it. Like it didn't even feel like it was thought out anymore. It was just one thing after another, and it's like, oh, I'd wanted this from the very beginning, but it really didn't seem that way at all. Another problem I have with it is pretty much the main thing I don't like about Build, and that's just how many forms there is. I don't understand why you need like 60 bottles, and that's not even including like the special ones, like the sparkling and the full ones. But I really don't see the point, because it gets to the point where half the time you don't even use them. Well, I say half the time. Most of the time they don't even use them, because like there's some best matches that they've only ever used once, or like, and so I don't even remember some of them like even being used at all. It's like completely ridiculous. So this is one of the reasons why I really love Kuga's forms, because not one of them were unnecessary. They all had their strengths and weaknesses, and he always had to use them in fights. Say if there was an enemy up in the sky, he'd have to use Pegasus, or if there's an enemy that like is very strong, he'd have to use, say, Titan. It was like he had specific forms for specific kind of fights. Also, I'm really not a fan of how in Build most of the forms are just either repaints, or the gimmick item like the Cross Dragon is either just a remold or a repaint. Miku Hatsune 500 from YouTube asks, are you excited for 01? I am really looking forward to it, yeah. At the time of me filming this, 01 hasn't started yet, but I am pretty sure it's starting in the next few weeks, I think. In like 2 weeks, I'm pretty sure. I did make a post about like my whole thoughts about all the scans on 01, what I thought about like the belts and all like the suits on Kamen Rider Amino, so I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go have a look at that. But I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that they take it in a way that is really good, because I really didn't enjoy Zio, and I'll get onto that later. But I'm just hoping, because I've heard that it's going to be about like robots and that, but I hope that they actually manage to pull it off and show a story that actually makes sense and actually is enjoyable. I really like how the riders all have, well, pretty much all, like they have their own belts. Like 01 has his own belt. I think Vulcan and Valkyrie, they're called, have their own belt, which is like the gun, which is the shot riser, I believe. They have their belt. And then Jin and Horobi have their own belt as well. So I think like that's what I really love in seasons, where it's like I love variety. It's not just all of them using the exact same belt and maybe one other rider using another one. So like that's what I really like. Next question comes from SCP-096 from Kamen Rider Amino, who is normally called Midnight Spectre, but on Amino people tend to change their names a lot, whether to fit a theme or something, or just as a joke. So yeah, it can get quite confusing trying to tell who's who there sometimes. He asks, what is your most loved LEGO creation? I definitely have to say the Fires Gear, as like, it's very close to being my favourite belt, because, although Ryuki does top it, because it is just such a fun belt to make, just how it has so many functions. It's like the belt can be used on its own, but also turn into a gun. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that for the actual model, because I kind of ran into a couple of problems. And I really like how the weapons he uses are just gadgets that he has on the side of his belt, or like just normal everyday technology that just transform into his actual weapons, which I have seen on the 01 scans that he also has a weapon like that. He has like what looks like a briefcase, unless it like opens out or something, and it turns into his sword, which is I think is pretty cool. Like with Fi's, you've got like the knuckle duster, which is actually a camera, and you've got the pointer, which does the finisher, which I think is meant to be a torch. I'm pretty sure, and his sword comes out of the motorbike handle, and it was just really satisfying, especially this one fight. I think it was when he fought Mr. J, which I think was his name, and when he fought him, he threw Fires up in the air. After trying to do the finisher with the pointer, he quickly pulled out the camera and equipped it in just like a matter of seconds, and we were just ready to perform a finisher on him. And I thought that was a really cool like little scene. Now Mid has also asked a follow-up question, even though I said to do one per person, but considering he's my friend and it's a pretty good question, I'll make an exception. He says, can you do a crossover with Marco Satsu and review Amino OCs? I'm actually completely up for that idea, and I think it would be a really fun video to make, so it's really dependent on Marcos if he wants to make it with me. I'll give him a message and see if he's up for it. What are you doing here? Oh well. So, Joku from Kamen Rider Amino asks, what is the most challenging LEGO build you have ever made? Definitely the most challenging build I've ever had to do was the Geki Ryuken from Madan Senki Ryukendo, because that took like many attempts to make. That took many attempts to make, and I couldn't really like get it right and like how I wanted it to be. And I really wanted it to be like sort of a good size, because on the show it's completely it's huge, it's ridiculous. But then in the actual toy version, it's quite small. So I wanted it to be like quite a good size, but still have it like work properly. So it was quite hard and annoying to get it to a size I was happy with. And even before I made like the final model, I'd planned to do it before, but I wasn't really happy with how it turned out, so I wanted to redo it. What are you doing, you disgusting dog? You're on camera. I'm trying to film a video here, and you're doing gross stuff. How about no? Kalred Dai Shogun from YouTube asks, what is my favourite Kamen Rider gimmick? Well, I don't know if this actually counts as a gimmick, but I'd say probably my favourite is the advent cards from Kamen Rider Ryuki. Now, like I said, Ryuki is like my favourite belt, and I just love how they have like all the weapons and all their abilities already in the belt, and they just have to pull a card out and like activate it in whatever visor they have, like Ryuki with his drag visor, or Knight with whatever his visor's called, the sword that opens up. But yeah, I just really think that's a really cool idea, and what are you doing? So yeah. SCP-682, who is like I know as Sake, which is also like one of the people that like to change their name quite a bit, ask, what's your favourite video game and why do you like it? Now this to me is like a very tricky one. There's a couple games that I really do enjoy playing and will just play to the ends of time. And before I get to my favourite one, I'll say the other two that I really like playing. One being Portal 2. I've been playing that for a long time now, and I think it's probably my favourite story game as like a first person shooter, I guess you could call it, if it counts as one of those. But it's like single player story game, and it's just absolutely incredible. And I think that I could just play it I could just play it anytime, and I'll just have fun playing it. Next one is Minecraft, which I'm sure quite a lot of people play. It's kind of currently sort of become a popular game, which is pretty cool, because I get to I've always enjoyed playing it, and I've always enjoyed building things on it, and just sort of going online with people is just always just one of the funnest things to do. But if I had to narrow it down, definitely my favourite game would definitely have to be can I get a drum roll, please? would definitely have to be... It's this one here. Super Mario 64 is just probably my favourite game of all time. I just can't describe like the joy I get every time I play that. No matter if it's like a hard level I'm playing, I still just like love having a go and just like... Super Mario 64 is definitely my favourite game of all time because it's just, I can't describe just the joy that comes over me every time I play this game. There's just so many levels to play, and each of them are all so unique, and each of them have like fantastic music. Well, there's some couple recycled music are the same, but I love how it just gives the player complete freedom of like how they want to play the game. You can play any level in pretty much any order you want, and even when you go onto that like stage, there's 6 stars and you can get them in whichever order you want. Like the red coins are always there, you can always get them, you can always get the 100 coin star, you can always get like any star that's available. It's really fun. You don't have to do them in a specific order they're laid out to you, you can just make your own order and discover new things. The community for this game is also really fantastic. Like, once I stopped playing this game, I got quite sad because I really enjoyed playing all the levels and I really wanted to see more of what it could be. And that's when I found out there are hundreds upon hundreds of ROM hacks made by the community that still play this game and love it. Of just completely new levels, completely new stages, and like most of them are just incredible. It's like a whole different game. It's like a sequel to this game. It's mind-blowing. You think you finish with this game, but turns out you go online, there's like hundreds of others that you can just download and play yourself. It's fantastic, and all you need is the emulator. My favourites definitely being Last Impact, Star Road, and the Green Stars. Also, shout-outs to Simple Flips. So quick heads up before I continue answering questions. Some of them may say they're replying to an account called Lego Spider-Man. And like I said about Amino earlier, people like to change the name, and sometimes it's to do with like a topic, so everybody pretty much joins in. And at that point, we were doing like Into the Spider-Verse kind of thing, where we were all changing our accounts to Spider-Man themed stuff. So we were all different Spider-Men, and originally I was going to be Spider-Man UK, but then I got suggested to be Lego Spider-Man, which clearly made sense. What are you doing? So anyway, Maxwell's Demon, who I know as memes, asks, how tall am I?
How tall are you?
That is a very strange and exact question. Well, I am pretty much, I think, just over 6 foot, so yeah. And the next question is asked by 2 different people, one being Kal-El from Kamen Rider Amino, and The Hunter EXT from YouTube. They ask, what is your favourite season of Kamen Rider? As some of you may already know, my favourite series of Kamen Rider always is, unless I change my mind, is always Kuga. I just really love how this series gets so dark sometimes, even though it's still meant to be a kid's show. Like towards the end of the show, spoiler warning, there's some episodes where like hundreds of people die. There was one episode where like a couple hundred people die from a plane crash that I think was caused by one of the Grongi. And sometimes, even quite graphically and on screen, like this show got disturbing at some points. So you may wonder like why I kind of like these moments. Well, that's because I really enjoy horror. I think horror is probably my favourite like genre of say of film, and it's really disappointing that or like most horror films that come out now are pretty goddamn terrible. But there's still fantastic ones out there, so it'll always be my favourite. And I really love it when shows that aren't normally meant to be sort of disturbing take a turn sometimes and just get into some really like disturbing stuff. The music in Kuga is also absolutely fantastic. I still listen to it like sometimes when I'm on the go or like when I'm just chilling out. It's just really cool. 2 songs I'm going to pick out. One being Warrior or Senshi. That song is just pure epicness. It always reminds me of the first fight Kuga had against the Spider Grongi when he was fighting him atop the helicopter, and it just played in the background and Kuga managed to overcome him, and it was just really cool. and the other being Gekito. Whenever I hear this song, I always picture Kuga riding to the scene where there's been a killing by a Grongi, and then when you think it's over, it goes all quiet, it comes back in full force with this really intense beat, which always seems like it should be played over like a really intense fight, which it does in the show, and I think that's just really cool. It makes it really intense. Now, I mentioned earlier how I didn't like the forms in Build. I really like the forms in Kuga, and that's because Kuga is pretty much like a polar opposite when it comes to his forms. You got the 4 forms like Mighty, Pegasus, Dragon, and Titan, and all of them have their own powered up form, which makes sense. And each of those forms I think are really good because each of them have their strengths and each of them have their weaknesses. Like Mighty is like the base form, it's good at punching, it's good at kicking, it's good at hand-to-hand combat. It's okay at agility, but it's just an all-around the normal form. And then you have Dragon, which has very fantastic agility, it fights with the staff and can jump at the size of a building. However, it's really not good in hand-to-hand combat. It's very weak when it comes to punching, kicking, and all that stuff. Pegasus is used for long-range attacks because he gets this sort of bow weapon thing, and it has very, very strong senses. It can see things from really far away, you can hear very well. However, it can be a bit too much sometimes. The first time he used it, he got a bit overwhelmed because he accidentally turned into it while he was hanging off the side of a building, and all that was just completely information overload, and then he fell off the building. A good couple stories. And finally Titan, which is very good in terms of power. He uses a sword and he's very strong in defense, but it doesn't have good agility because it's very slow. And each of these forms has the Rising, which is basically just the more progressed version. It's those forms, but powered up. It still has the same strengths and same weaknesses, but powered up more. And then you've got the Amazing Mighty form, which in terms of its debut wasn't really important or necessary, but it was pretty powerful. The kick from it pretty much caused a giant flaming tornado that just completely engulfed the forest that he was fighting in, which isn't really too necessary when it comes to his forms, but it was still quite a nice addition. And then finally you have Ultimate, which is Kuga's final form, and oh boy, it shows. Unlike the other seasons where the final form shows up around episode 40 and then still gets used towards the end, Kuga doesn't do that. Kuga gets his form in the penultimate episode and only uses it during that one fight, which I think was actually a pretty good idea. So now people may say that they don't like just seeing the form once and not getting to see it used to its full power, but I personally don't think it really needed to, because Kuga Ultimate was pretty much one of the strongest forms in Kamen Rider. It has literally the kicking power to destroy the world, with one kick. And I really don't think you really need to use that, let alone even show it. It doesn't need more than one appearance. It's that overpowered. Ultimate is supposed to represent Kuga's last stage in evolution, with him gaining his full potential, also losing himself in the process. Now, this actually doesn't happen because he doesn't get all the way to Ultimate, and you can tell because the actual Ultimate, his final form, the proper Ultimate, has black eyes, and during the final fight with Daguba, he has red eyes. So it showed he hadn't lost himself yet, and he was still himself. At the time of me writing this, I've just seen Grand Zio appear. Now, Grand Zio is supposed to be the form representing Sogo gaining all the powers of the main Heisei riders, which of course would include Kuga Ultimate. Kuga Ultimate itself was very overpowered, but the fact that this form has its power, and also of every other main rider and their final form, is just completely insane. However, in the very next episode, literally after its debut, it gets beaten. Just why? And that just completely gives the impression that the form is just really terrible. Gone is the feeling that this form is completely overpowered and it loses all of its specialty. Because when you have an overpowered form that you hype up as being, oh, he's gained all the powers of main Heisei riders and their final forms, it's so strong, this is his final form. But it's not strong at all, because when you show that form completely beaten after one episode, you just completely lose all hope for it. And you know that we're not even going to get to see this much at all, because it's not a strong form. So if Kuga had more episodes with the final form, Obviously, you can't just have the final form beating every single Grongi in every single episode, which I understand, because otherwise there'd be no point anymore. But then, if you were to show it getting beaten by a Grongi, you would think completely less of it. So that's why I think that it was a really good idea to have it as just one episode in Kuga, because it didn't need any others and it didn't need to show it anymore. Otherwise, it would have just completely ruined it. But then in Decade, you got another form, which was the Rising Ultimate form, which I think is just completely ridiculous and unnecessary. Why do you need a power-up form for the Ultimate form, which is supposed to be his ultimate evolution? He can't go any higher than that. This is supposed to be his strongest form. The form that can kick the world and have it completely destroyed in one go. I don't understand why you need that to be even more overpowered. It's just completely ridiculous. Oh yeah, let's make the OP form even more OP. Just why? Yugi the Blob from Kamen Rider Amino asks, can we get your all-time least favourite Kamen Rider suits? Well, there's quite a few suits that I'm not really a fan of, but I'd be here for quite a while if I went into detail about why I don't like them and like how many there are. So I'm just going to do like a worst 3 Kamen Rider suits said by me. Said by guy. Make sure to put that in the title. As well as that. So in no particular order, I'm just going to start with Kakai. Now, quite a few people actually really like this suit, and I'm not one of them. Now, I know the Mirai Rider suits are just repaints of the previous suits from Kamen Rider, but it just felt like the others actually pulled it off quite well. Like, I really like Shinobi's look. Like, if you had told me, oh, that's another suit from Kamen Rider just repainted, I wouldn't have known it. Or even Quiz. Like, after being told that's clearly the XA, like, chest plate, I wouldn't have even noticed, because I actually, like, I'm okay with that suit. Like, although it did kind of, like, take a bit to grow on me, because I wasn't really a fan of, like, especially the undersuit. Like, not the armor, but the undersuit that he wears. I wasn't really a fan of that at first, but I kind of liked it over time. But with Kakai, it's just, I can't unsee that it's just a Guardian from Build. Like, it's not even subtle about it. It's literally just the same suit, coloured in differently, and just given a different helmet. It's like, I can't unsee it, and for that, I just think, I really don't like this suit. Like, at all. Even the belt looks absolutely terrible. Even with the other two, they have some sort of, like, gimmick and functionality. Like, it seems fun with Shinobi to equip the shuriken and spin it around, or with Quiz to insert the Quiz topper. But with Kakai, you just put a wrench on a screwdriver and then put it on. It's just, it didn't seem like enjoyable at all. It doesn't seem like a good belt either. Next up is Kamen Rider Killbus. Good lord. Now for me, this guy is just completely horrible. It's just, it hurts my eyes to look at this thing. The colour scheme is just completely awful. It's just red and black, just mixed in together like a massive mishmash. It's just really weird. It does have spider legs coming off it, which in theory could be cool, but it's just the fact that they included absolutely no colour or variety in the suit other than just red and black. It just looks really awful to me. And finally, I definitely have to include Grand Zeo. Now, some of you may already know that I don't like the look of this form. It is really, really bad. It's literally if you crossed Decade Complete with Hyper Muteki, and it just looks just like a massive mess. It's basically if you took Ghost Heisei Damashi and just made a Zeo version of it. Like, that's all they did. They just changed it. They just made another one of those suits. Just have all the riders all over them. It just looks so bad. Oh, then of course you've got Zeo's face just stuck on top, which they seem to do quite a lot, to be honest. Now, there are a lot of suits in Zeo that I really don't like. Like, quite a lot of the armors, to me, look really bad. But I could go on and on and on about it, so I'm just gonna move on to the next question. Next question comes from Den1001 from Kamen Rider Amino. They ask, do you think that it was funny when Chase got his driver's license in Drive episode 39? I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, I haven't seen Drive, so... Toy is the best from YouTube asks, what do you do in your free time? Well, I enjoy hanging out and going for drinks with my friends. I like to go on my laptop, playing on games as well as my PS4 with my friends as well. I enjoy playing retro games as well as new ones. I've got quite a few old consoles up there. For the games I don't own, I'll just emulate them. I really enjoy watching YouTube and listening to music, and I really like making models out of Lego, which you probably already knew, so yeah. Green Guy 91 from YouTube asks, is your favourite rider Kamen Rider Skull? He's not. My favourite Kamen Rider is, as I've said before, Cougar. Skull is probably my favourite rider in double. If you're basing that information off my profile image, well, I'm not even really sure why I picked it in the first place, to be honest. I guess I just decided to stick with it from the beginning. Although I do plan on changing it at some point and hopefully get something that's like actually original and not just a symbol for something else, which I'll either make or I might ask someone to see if they can make one for me. So ignore the apparent lighting and clothing change. It's clearly not because that the footage of the last couple questions being answered just completely disappeared when I was very close to being finished. Guess I have to do it again. So next question comes from SCP-3213, who I know as Vince from Kamen Rider Amino. He asks, what is my opinion on O's? Well, to be honest, I actually haven't seen O's. I've seen clips of it online, and I have started watching it before, but it was quite a while ago, and I didn't really get too far in, only a couple episodes, I think. But I do kind of know sort of what happens in the show. I think the rider itself, O's, is a very cool rider. I think his suit looks really nice. I managed to take like 3 colours, like red, yellow and green, and put them into a suit together, which at first you think might not be the best kind of sounding thing, but they actually managed to pull it off by not focusing entirely on those colours and making it like bright and neon like, say, Super Tato, which to me doesn't look very good. I think the belt looks very good. I think it fits with the suit very well and that doesn't like stand out a lot. I think the gimmick of the cool medals and the cell medals is really cool. I'm not really too knowledgeable about what like happens in the show or like why like there's a lot of things happen, but I have seen the ending and I know, spoiler, it's quite sad. In terms of the forms, I think they all sort of have their own like charm to them. There's not really any that sort of I massively dislike. There's not really many that I really dislike. I think they're all good in their own aspects, except for Super Tatoba, which I said before. But other than that, I don't really have any other criticisms, but I probably will do once I eventually watch the show, whenever I get around to it. The Lord from YouTube asks, how much time does it need to build a Kamen Rider belt? Well, it really all depends on what the actual belt is like. How big is it? How much of a gimmick does it have? How much like stuff does it come with? Say like with the Fies gear, you have the belt, you have the phone, you have the pointer, you have the shot, and then you have the watch, which is quite an amount of items to make. But normally for just a belt on its own, it takes around maybe a couple hours, like 5-6 hours in total, without counting the times where like I encounter a problem and I have to like redo a specific part or pretty much the whole thing all over again. But like added that time on, it would probably be a couple more hours. Probably like the Fies gear is probably the longest I've spent on a belt because I wanted to make that like really good, because like this is one of my favourite belts and I think it's just really cool. So I wanted to make it like look good, and I wanted to make it like function as close to the show and like the toy as it actually can be. And that took around, I think, 9 hours, I'm pretty sure. Maybe. Like in total, but yeah. Which you think would be quite long and boring, but once you get into building a model, you kind of just sort of lose track of time and it's really satisfying once you get it finished. Kugerili Cougar Girl from Kamen Rider Amino asks, what is your favourite rider arc in any particular season? Well, that is a bit of a tricky question because at the time, there's not a whole lot of Kamen Rider scenes that I've actually like fully watched through. Even the ones I actually have, there's really not many like arcs that really come to mind that like stick out, to be honest. There is a couple that I could talk about, but none of them really like stick out to be my favorite. So I'll just talk about one of them. I really liked in Ryuki how Ren slowly befriended Shinji throughout the series. Like, he was always really cold to him and didn't really care about him at all or what happened to him. And there was times where like he wanted to fight him with the intent of basically killing him. But as the end approached, he began to see Shinji as more of a friend, but he didn't really admit it to anyone or even himself. Up until the penultimate episode where, spoiler alert, Shinji gets attacked by a swarm of monsters while he tries to protect a little girl, but he doesn't have the chance to transform. And although he does put up a good fight in the end, he does ultimately collapse from his injuries. Shinji gives Ren some parting words as Ren finally realizes how much he actually cares for Shinji and how much of a friend he really is to him. Ren tells Shinji that he has to live on shouting at him to not give up. Like, to the point where he begins to break into tears, and it's just such a heartbreaking scene. However, it doesn't really have a happy ending as Shinji dies in Ren's arms, giving us probably one of the only main Kamen Rider deaths on screen, and the end to Ren and Shinji's short-lived friendship. Milky Rosie from Kamen Rider Amino asks, what is your favourite rider shipping and why? I'm going to be honest, Milky, I don't really go into series and start shipping characters. Unless it's essential to the plot, then I really don't ship characters together because I just don't really care. If they end up with someone, I'm just okay. If it wasn't someone I was expecting, then I'm just alright, I'll go with that. But other than that, it's not really a thing that I ever really think about. And finally, Noriaki Kakyoin, who I know as Memes from Kamen Rider Amino, asks, what is my least favourite Kamen Rider? This also goes with Zhang Fei's question, who I believe was Bolt at the time. He asks, which season do you hate but love and vice versa? Well, since I already said which season I love, being Cougar, I think it's time to talk about the one I hate. Without a shadow of a doubt in mind, my least favourite Kamen Rider is Zio. This is probably going to be a long answer, but I'll try to sort of summarise it into a couple points, because I could go on and on with a lot of plot points and different things that I really don't like about it, but yeah, I might as well just get started. So here's why I hate Zio. Number one, it breaks its own rules. So it was established at the very beginning of the series, another rider and a rider cannot coexist at all. And they do stick by this for a good while, but then it gets to the point where it just feels like they forgot about that rule completely. There's fights, say for example the fight with Quiz. Another Quiz is fighting Zio and Gates, and then Quiz shows up and they just fight. What? Another Quiz is literally right there, and then Quiz comes up, transforms, and then joins in the fight. Why is that possible? Why? I don't understand at all. Did they just forget about the rule? Literally the same thing happens with Kabuto, Blade, and even Hibiki. At first I thought it's oh, maybe they just forgot about this rule. But then in one episode, Tsukiyomi literally calls out the fact that this should not be possible, because here you have another rider and a rider fighting when they shouldn't be there at the same time, let alone at all. They can't coexist. She calls it out, saying, oh, I wonder what happened to this rule. And Soga's just oh yeah, that's a good question. And then they never bring it up again. Another rule that they break is that it was established that once a rider gives Sogo his ride watch, they give him their powers essentially. They can't transform anymore. So then why was Decade still able to transform after he gave Sogo his powers? Also, why did he even give it to him in the first place? He wasn't on their side at the time. He just said, I'm just going to give it to them, because why not? It's literally the only reason why he gave it to him was because riders normally get their power up form around that time. So they just decided to just throw it at him. Number two, I don't care for any of the characters at all. I don't know what it is, but there's literally nothing about the characters that I care about. One thing that probably would have actually made me care was actually showing them having a backstory or something. I'm not sure what it is about this series, but it just seems like nobody has a backstory at all. They just don't give any time to develop a character whatsoever. With Gates, for example, we barely get to see him in the past at all. Well, his past, our future. But we get to see him fighting Zio, but that's really about it. We don't learn anything else. We don't see who his family was, maybe. We don't see why he originally joined the cause, maybe? Was there a reason he started fighting against Oma? How did he get the belt? How did he get his ride watch? Many questions that could have been answered, but just completely went. It's literally the same thing with the Time Jackets. I know absolutely nothing about them. Why they wanted to be a Time Jacker in the first place, because apparently Schwartz gave them their powers, but surely they've had something happen to them in their time that's like made them want to do this. Surely something. Okay, spoiler warning here. It's like when dies in Zio. I don't care about these characters. If the other Time Jackers died, I wouldn't care because I know nothing about them. I don't care to. He gets really emotional because I spent the past 10 minutes somewhat bonding with him, even though I was trying to be nice to him, but he just didn't care at all. They clearly weren't bonding. I don't know why he even got that emotional and angry about it. Number 3, shouldn't there be like many paradoxes? So when another rider first appears, it's always in the past, but they always get encountered by Zio and Gates in the present. So then they fight them in the present, but only lose a bit. So they realize, they have to go back to the time where they originally were created. So they always travel back in time to that point and then fight them there with the power that they've gained from the actual rider. But as they defeat another rider in the past, wouldn't that make a paradox? Because if they defeated it in the past and it wouldn't live on to be in the present, there would be no reason for Zio and Gates to travel back in time in the first place. It's like, it's so confusing to talk about this because time travel is just such a awkward thing to work around, and when you just do stuff like this, it doesn't make any sense at all. It opens up many questions. Number 4, dead characters are just appearing because cameo, I guess. So during the Fires arc, Masato, aka Kaiksa, just kind of shows up. And my immediate reaction to this was, why aren't you dead? You died at the end of Fires, why are you here? Now someone did explain to me that once another rider takes the rider's powers, they completely stop being a rider from that point. Even if another rider is defeated, they won't go back to being a rider at all. Now this also opens up a lot of problems because one, the point that they showed that him losing his powers was from a very early episode in Fires. So when it comes to the monsters, say for example the Orphanox King, it was Fires who beat him. So why didn't the Orphanox King take over the world or do whatever, kill all the humans, whatever he wanted to do? I can't remember. And also in Zio, he acts like he knows Masato, but from the point where he loses his powers, he doesn't even know Masato at that point. So acting like he knows him is just a bit strange because they wouldn't have met, because Kaiksa would have just not interacted with Takumi at all if they'd neither of them being riders. It's just what? It gets to the point where I don't even know what to believe anymore. And number 5, what the hell happened to Gates Revive? So soon after it was first introduced, Gates Revived clearly had a side effect to being used. As every time that Gates used the Gates Revive watch, it clearly took a toll on him, as every time he'd finish using it, he took a considerable amount of damage, even to the point where at one point he was bleeding from his eyes. But then immediately after Zio and Gates become friends again, it just stops happening. It's not like they explain that, he got used to it, or it stopped hurting him. It just, nothing. We got absolutely nothing. From one point it was killing him, the next point it wasn't there. The only reason that this had the side effect was because they needed the point where Sogo and Gates are both too injured to fight each other, so they just decide to talk it out. That's the whole reason it's even there. I also don't understand why Zio in some fights just doesn't decide to go to his most powerful form. I know Zio isn't the only one guilty of doing this, but when you're in a fight and you don't know how strong your enemy is going to be, why would you choose your weaker form than your more powerful form? For example in the Kiva arc, when he first encounters another Kiva, when he's about to fight it, he turns into Zio. Why did he do that? I know he doesn't have the Kiva ride watch anyway, but he could have at least tried in Zio 2, which apparently, when it was first introduced, was supposed to be able to destroy any another rider. And he didn't even go Trinity. It's not like he couldn't have just gone to Trinity and like summoned Gates and wasn't for it. He just decided to just go to Zeo. It doesn't make any sense at all. So yeah, that's all the questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this stupid video. I don't know if you guys want me to make more content like this or just go back to making Lego models and never show my stupid face again, but if you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. I just realised I don't actually know how I'm supposed to end this.